Appendix E, Anti-Bias Education Action Project. Activism utilizing anti-bias practice in early childhood settings. This is in regards to the plan that I wanted to implement in the center that I visited, and some of the outcomes, and I'm going to talk about a little bit about um, just how my project went. On September 21st, I visited Patterson Head Start, which is the center where I work out of. Even though our classroom is welcoming and it is safe and it feels warm, there is a lot of work that can be done in regards to diversity. For example, even if there's a lot of diversity throughout the classroom, I noticed we didn't have a lot of unageism or the different family dynamics. I was commenting with some people that even though we have families, it didn't show like same sex parents or interracial couples. Most of the pictures, like I mentioned, had mom, dad, 2 kids, and a dog. We did have a couple of pictures in regards to disability, but not a whole lot. Or showing different ethnicities. We had a couple of pictures, but like I mentioned, not a lot as well. But the one thing that caught my attention was the language being spoken in the classroom, the language being represented in the classroom. This class is mainly given in English, so that's a little bit about it, but I'll tell you what I focused on. Okay, I came across an obstacle when I was implementing some of my plans, and this is why I kind of leaned towards the language. I wanted to bring in different materials into the classroom in regards to same-sex parents or interracial couples. The lead teacher still kind of sit on her ways, and even though she says that she accepts diversity, she said against homosexuality. For example, she did not want to represent families where they had the same parents. And as far as interracial couples, she wasn't too happy about that either. One thing that I also noticed, like I said, was the language. So then I decided to focus on the language being spoken in the classroom. This is what I was most influenced by. I observed that the instruction in the class was primarily English. All environment print was also in English. The class is made up of 60% English speakers and 40% non-English speakers. Sorry. In my opinion or belief, I believe that for the child to get a better sense of learning or a better connection, they should be spoken to in their home language, especially when the child does not understand English. The class needs to be instructed in both languages, or at least translate to the non-English speakers. I also read, and when I did my research, on how students need to be spoken and read to in their own languages. For it's a greater benefit for them because they can connect and they can express how they feel about the book, respond to it, simulate to them. Because I noticed that when they were speaking to one of the students, then they would ask them to please respond. Sorry, the glare's bugging me. To please respond into to the text, like, oh, what did you understand of the text, or what was your favorite part of the book? I think it's kind of unfair when they're asking the students these questions because you're being read to in English, yet you don't understand, but they expect you to respond to them. So with this in mind, I asked the teacher if we could implement more reading in Spanish and to at least have a couple of songs in Spanish throughout the day, implementing Spanish print throughout the classroom, because this would help our students not just connect, but learn, because if they see both prints, then okay, so this is what this means, like they'll be able to come up with it. The the only thing that I came across with a little bit of struggle was the books. Uh, Being that we don't have a lot of resources to be getting books due to the money, then I suggested that we go to the library and get books. I also involved the students' families in this. I focused more with one child, the one child that I was observing, which was a little boy, a 4 year old. His name is Kenneth. I don't know if it matters, but his name is Kenneth. And when I was speaking to Kenneth's family, I also noticed that mom, um, she wanted to learn English as well. And she had been struggling because she says when papers go home and stuff like that, she is unable to read them because sometimes the flyers or stuff, the information is mainly in English, and sometimes it's not translated for them. I also helped her by reading papers for her or helping her fill out applications that she needed submitted. Gave her I gave her the resources she needed, or the information, I should say, for her to go take English classes at an adult school, because she said she wants to learn the language to be able to help her children with their homework. Um, the way I have changed some ideas through this is that I believe our center was diverse at the beginning, and I thought that we were doing a great job with what we had. And I have to be honest to you that it was a real eye opener that even though that we display some form of diversity, we are far from actually being a true anti-bias center. We still do not embrace the subject of homosexuality, or do we truly implement social justice? We need more books on the topics of family dynamics and pictures of family dynamics. We need to leave our beliefs and our biases aside and truly be an anti-bias classroom. So this means that I know that we all grow up with different beliefs, but sometimes I think we need to leave them at the door when we're working with children in our community, especially because we serve all genders, all type of cultures, people from different nations, and just everybody is different, and we as educators need to understand this. Implementing the use of the home language, children can express comfort and joy with human diversity, accurate language to create meaningful connections. Working with students and their families in the community, this is very important because when you speak to them in their language and they feel accepted, respected, and that you take them into mind when you're making decisions, because you're actually asking them for their opinions. And sometimes I think when we don't truly ask them in Spanish or whatever language they may speak, sometimes they nod their heads, but they really don't have a true understanding of what it is you're trying to implement. Basically, they just say yes because they think that it's the right thing to say. Hey, everybody else is nodding, so I'll nod along. I was most influenced by Goal 3. Each child will increasingly recognize unfairness, have language to describe unfairness, hurts. Um, so we did a lesson on a book called Don't Laugh at Me, and it also has a CD along with it. We talked about all types of differences. We brought in pictures. I showed them videos of, people with different abilities or disabilities. For example, we're not all the same. And it's okay that we're not all the same. But I also showed how even if we're different, we all want to do some of the same stuff. I showed them kids playing soccer that only were missing a limb. I showed kids with glasses. I talked about how I need glasses to see better. Some kids need hearing aids to hear better. We talked about kids in wheelchairs. And we also had them look at pictures and describe what they saw in the picture. And then we also had an activity with the apples. We had a red apple, a green apple, and a yellow apple, and we cut them open. And then we talked about the skin and how they're different. But then we cut open the apple, And we saw that the apples all had the same color inside. They all had seeds. And we talked about how they were sweet and juicy. So then we talked about how even though on the outside sometimes we're different, but inside we're the same. We talked about feelings and how other gets hurt. For me, this was a very important subject to talk about with the kids because I think that if we start them off young, then as adults or when they go to high school or middle school, they'll remember this and maybe not become bullies or hopefully accept everybody, embrace everybody, or at least respect. Um, that's like of great importance. That's one of our our expectations in our classroom, which I always go over with the kids and talk to them about respect. Um, the next thing for my plan and my hopefully I want to keep talking about diversity and also um, focus on the non-tangible. For example, I want kids to be nice to each other, and I think that sometimes we don't see it. It's we can see it, but we can't touch it or feel it. But I want it's sometimes the way the kids talk to each other, express themselves to each other, is a form of a non-tangible. And if they embrace each other and care for each other and stand up for one another, this would be something very, very positive for me. I want to talk more about the social justice. This is one of the things that I would like to consider in my plan. Um, like I talked about, I focused on bringing in the Spanish language into the classroom, which we did. I brought books from the library. We had different books. I borrowed books from different teachers. We've been reading them to them. And I can tell you that it was a great outcome because we noticed that we were able to actually get feedback from the students in regards to the stories. They were able to answer and they were able to share. And this was even a good tool for when we're doing our observations because we need that feedback from the students to fill out some of our DDPRs. But that was not my main goal. My main goal was talking back, on the anti-bias curriculum. So we also noticed that children started translating for each other. Like those that do speak English and Spanish are now telling the children, oh, la maestra te está diciendo que hagas esto, Kenneth. So basically they say, oh, this is what the teacher is asking of us, Kenneth. We're supposed to be doing this. Which for me was an awesome outcome, especially because students are understanding. So when they're translating and for their fellow classmates, this shows that they are understanding that we are different. But it's okay to be different because they're playing with each other. They're becoming more social. And this is one of the things that I also saw with Kenneth, because Kenneth at the beginning would only talk to two Spanish-speaking students. He would kind of not play with the other students. But by the end of the classroom, by the end of this lessons, or not lessons, but through the implementation of the plan, we have noticed that Kenneth now talks to the children, attempts to communicate in English, or at least joins them in play. Whereas before, he would just stay to himself and two other little girls, like I mentioned, that only spoke the same language. I'm happy also to share that Kenneth's mom found a job and she is starting to go to the adult school, which is two things that she wanted to, were two of her goals. And I'm happy that I was able to help her fill out applications or just translate things for her. This was a great experience to actually be able to implement something in the classroom. Even if we're in the classroom and me as a co-teacher, sometimes I think I don't take on the responsibility that I should, because even if I am just a co-teacher, I should be able to take on the roles and make changes and bring in diversity into our class. So in the future, I just hope to be able to talk more about social justice to my students because that is one of my passions. And it was a great experience. Thank you.